The night sky above New Mexico was clear and filled with stars. Inside the Arecibo 2 facility, Dr. Sarah Chun stared at her computer screen with tired eyes. It was 3 in the morning, and she had been monitoring deep space signals for 12 hours straight. The job was usually boring. Most days brought nothing but cosmic noise and distant radio, waves from dead stars. But tonight was different. The signal came through at 3:47 a.m. At first, Sarah thought her equipment was broken. The pattern was too perfect, too deliberate. It repeated every 30 seconds, a sequence of prime numbers that could only mean one thing. Someone out there was trying to talk. Her hand shook as she ran the analysis program. The signal was strong, incredibly strong. It came from a point in space 17 light years away. After the prime numbers came something else. Coordinates. A timestamp. And then, translated through mathematical language that any intelligent species would understand, a message. Come to us. We are dying. Sarah grabbed her phone and called her supervisor. Within an hour, the facility was full of people. Scientists rushed between computer stations, checking and rechecking the data. Everyone asked the same questions. Was it real? Was it a hoax? Could this really be happening? By sunrise, the signal had been confirmed by every major observatory on Earth. This was first contact, but not the kind humanity had dreamed about. This was a cry for help. The United Nations called an emergency meeting. World leaders gathered in New York, their faces projected on screens in the assembly hall. Sarah was there too, flown in on a military jet to explain what they had found. She stood at the podium, her voice steady despite her nerves. The signal is broadcasting on every frequency we can detect. Whoever sent it wants to be heard. They're not hiding. They're desperate. The room erupted in arguments. Some wanted to respond immediately. Others demanded caution. What if it was a trap? What if hostile aliens were luring humanity into danger? Then something else happened. Another signal arrived, but this one came from much closer. From Earth's own orbit. The screens in the assembly hall flickered and changed. A face appeared, but it was not human. The being looked like it was made of living crystal, its features angular and beautiful. Light seemed to glow from within its translucent skin. People of Earth, the being said in perfect English, though its mouth did not move in a human way. I am Ambassador Thelanara of the Concord of Sentient Worlds. We have been observing your planet for some time. The message you received has forced us to reveal ourselves. The assembly hall fell silent. Sarah felt her heart pounding. Thelanara explained that the galaxy was full of intelligent life. 47 species had formed the Concord, a union based on peace and cooperation. They had laws, the most important being the first sanction. It forbade contact with species that had not yet developed faster than light travel. Earth was one such species. The beings who sent that message are called the Calathi. Thelanara continued. They are dying from a plague. They sent their cry for help across the stars, breaking our most sacred law. By reaching out to you, a pre-warp species, they have violated the first sanction. A delegate from Brazil stood up. Then help them. You have the technology. You can save them. The crystal being's expression did not change, but something in its glow seemed sad. We cannot. If we respond to their call, we also break the first sanction. The law exists to prevent chaos. If we ignore it once, the entire Concord falls apart. We have quarantined the Calathi system. No one is allowed to enter or leave. Sarah found herself speaking before she realized it. So you're just going to let them die? You're going to watch an entire species go extinct because of a law? Yes, Thelanara said simply. That is our way. We value order and stability above all else. The room exploded with angry voices. Sarah felt sick. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were dying, and the only people who could help them refused to act. The Secretary General called for order. When the room quieted, he asked the question everyone was thinking. What about us? We're not part of your concord. We're not bound by your laws. Thelanara's crystalline eyes seemed to study the assembly. That is correct. Humanity is not bound by the first sanction. If you chose to respond to the Kalathi's call, we would not stop you. But you won't help us either, Sarah said. No, we will remain neutral. This is your choice to make. Over the next 3 days, the world debated. News channels showed nothing but discussions about the Kalathi. Should humanity try to save them? The journey would be dangerous. The Kalathi were 17 light years away, through unexplored space. Earth's experimental faster-than-light drive had only been tested once, and it barely worked. Many people said it was too risky. Humanity should focus on its own problems. Others argued that this was exactly the moment that would define what kind of species humans were. Would they hide in fear, or would they reach out to help? Sarah watched the debates from her small apartment. She knew the experimental FTL drive better than anyone. She had helped design it. If humanity decided to go, they would need her. The vote came on the 4th day. The United Nations Assembly passed the resolution by a narrow margin. Humanity would respond to the call. They would send a mission to help the Kalathi. Sarah volunteered immediately. So did thousands of others. Scientists, doctors, engineers, and soldiers all wanted to be part of the mission. They chose 6 ships from Earth's small fleet of experimental vessels. The flagship would be called the Odyssey. On the day before launch, Thelanara visited Sarah at the shipyard. The ambassador walked between the ships, studying them with curiosity. Your vessels are primitive, Thelanara said. Your chances of survival are less than 40%. Sarah crossed her arms. Then I guess it's good we're doing this and not you. The crystal beam made a sound that might have been a laugh. In all of Concord history, no species has ever done what you are about to do. We will be watching. Some think you are fools. Others wonder if you are something more. What do you think? Sarah asked. Thelanara was quiet for a moment. I hope you succeed. Perhaps you will teach us something we have forgotten. The next morning, 6 ships rose from Earth on pillars of fire. The planet watched as they climbed into the sky, heading toward the stars. Heading toward strangers who needed help. Heading into the unknown. The journey to the Kalathi system would take 6 months, even with the experimental faster-than-light drive. 6 months alone in deep space, far from Earth, far from any help. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Odyssey and looked at her crew. 43 people from 20 different countries, all volunteers, all ready to risk everything for strangers they had never met. The fleet consisted of 6 ships. The Odyssey was the largest, carrying most of the scientific equipment and medical supplies. The other 5 were smaller support vessels. They had names like Hope and Unity and Endeavor. Sarah thought the names were a bit dramatic, but she understood why people chose them. This mission needed Hope. Commander James Rodriguez was the military officer in charge of the fleet's security. He was a serious man from Mexico who rarely smiled. He stood next to Sarah on the bridge, watching the crew prepare for the first jump to faster-than-light speed. Dr. Chun, he said quietly, do you really think we can do this? Save an entire alien species with 6 ships and less than 300 people? Sarah looked out at the stars through the main viewport. I don't know, Commander, but I know we have to try. The first FTL jump was terrifying. The ship shook and groaned as it punched through the fabric of space. Reality seemed to bend around them. Some crew members got sick. Others prayed. Sarah held onto her seat and hoped the calculations were correct. When they emerged, they were 3 light years from Earth. The jump had worked. The crew cheered, but Sarah felt only relief. They would have to make many more jumps before reaching the Calathi. 3 weeks into the journey, they received a message from the Concorde. It was Thelanara again, her crystalline face appearing on their communication screen. "Humanity's fleet," the ambassador said. "We have been monitoring your progress. You have entered space that the Concorde has marked as hazardous. We are obligated to warn you of what lies ahead." Sarah felt her stomach tighten. "What kind of hazards?" "The space between your world and the Calathi contains anomalies, spatial distortions, radiation fields, the remains of an ancient war. This is why the Concorde established no colonies in this region. This is why the Calathi are so isolated." Commander Rodriguez leaned forward. "Why didn't you tell us this before we left?" "You did not ask," Thelanara replied. "And we are neutral in this matter. We provide information, not assistance." After the ambassador signed off, the crew gathered to discuss what they should do. Some wanted to turn back. The mission was already dangerous enough without adding unknown hazards. But most wanted to continue. They had come this far. They could not give up now. Dr. Marcus Webb, the chief medical officer from England, spoke up. "We have supplies for the Calathi, medicine, equipment. Even if the journey is dangerous, we have to try. People are dying while we debate." The vote was unanimous. They would continue. The hazards appeared 2 months into the journey. The first was a radiation storm, invisible but deadly. Alarms screamed as the ship's sensors detected the danger. They had to change course, adding days to their journey. Then came the spatial anomalies, places where space itself seemed to twist and fold. Navigation became a nightmare. Their instruments gave false readings. Twice they nearly collided with debris from whatever ancient war had been fought here. Sarah spent hours studying the anomalies, trying to understand them. The Concorde had maps of this region, but they refused to share them. Humanity had to figure it out alone. During the 3rd month, they found something strange. Floating in space was a massive structure, clearly artificial. It looked like a weapons platform, thousands of years old, but still active. When the Odyssey came close, the structure powered up and fired. The blast hit the Hope, one of the support ships. The vessel's shields held, but barely. Commander Rodriguez immediately ordered all ships to battle stations. "We can't fight that thing," Sarah said, watching the ancient weapon charge for another shot. "It's too powerful." "Then we run," Rodriguez replied. But running was not fast enough. The weapons platform tracked them, firing again and again. The Unity took a hit and lost its engine. The Endeavor moved to protect it, taking damage to its own shields. Sarah made a decision. She ordered the crew to launch all their mining drones, small automated machines meant for collecting samples. The drones swarmed toward the weapons platform, and when they got close, Sarah detonated their power cores. The explosion was not enough to destroy the ancient structure, but it confused its sensors. The Odyssey and the other ships escaped while the platform fired blindly into space. Later, Thelanara sent another message. The ambassador looked almost impressed. That was crude but effective. A Concorde ship would have tried to negotiate with the defense system or bypass it peacefully. "You simply attacked. We are updating our assessment of human tactical thinking." Sarah was too tired to feel proud. The Unity's engine was damaged. They had to stop for repairs, losing another week. Crew morale was falling. They were still 2 months from the Calathi system, and they had already faced things the Concorde had warned them about. In the quiet of her quarters, Sarah reviewed the data they had collected about the Calathi plague. The Concorde had provided basic information, but as Sarah studied it, something felt wrong. The plague was too efficient, too targeted. It attacked Calathi, Biology with precision that seemed impossible for a natural disease. She shared her concerns with Dr. Webb. The medical officer studied the data and reached the same conclusion. "This is not natural," he said. "Someone designed this. Someone created a weapon to kill the Calathi." The question was who and why. The Concord claimed ignorance. They said the plague appeared suddenly, and by the time they noticed, the Calathi were already quarantined. Sarah sent a message back to Earth, explaining what they had found. But Earth was so far away now that the response would take weeks to arrive. The fleet was truly alone. During the 4th month, they detected something else. Concord observation ships were following them, staying just outside sensor range, but clearly tracking the human fleet. Sarah contacted Felinara and demanded an explanation. "We are observing," the ambassador said. "The Concord wants to see if humanity succeeds or fails. There are bets being placed among the member species. Some believe you will turn back. Others think you will die before reaching the Calathi. A few believe you might actually arrive." "And what do you believe?" Sarah asked. Felinara's crystal features reflected light and patterns Sarah could not read. "I believe you are either the bravest species in the galaxy or the most foolish. Perhaps both." In the 5th month, the Odyssey's life support system began failing. The constant jumping through FTL had stressed the ship's systems beyond their design limits. Engineers worked around the clock to keep everything running. They had to ration water and power. Sarah barely slept. She moved between the bridge and engineering, helping wherever she could. The crew was exhausted, scared, and far from home. But they did not give up. Commander Rodriguez found her one night in the observation deck, staring at the stars. "We're going to make it," he said. It was not a question. "Yes," Sarah replied. "We have to." On the first day of the 6th month, sensors detected the Calathi system ahead. The star was smaller than Earth's sun, redder and dimmer. 6 planets orbited it, and the 3rd one was Calath Prime, the homeworld. Sarah stood on the bridge and watched as they approached. Through the viewport, she could see debris floating in orbit around the planet. Satellites that had stopped working. Ships that had been abandoned. The planetary shields were flickering, barely holding. "Open a channel," Sarah ordered. "All frequencies. Let them know we're here." The communication officer worked his console. After a moment, he looked up with tears in his eyes. "Dr. Chun, we're receiving a response. They're saying thank you. They can't believe someone came." Sarah felt her own eyes water. 6 months of danger and hardship. 6 months of doubt and fear. But they had made it. Against all odds, humanity had answered the call. "Prepare for orbital insertion," she commanded. "Let's get to work." The Calathi homeworld looked sick from orbit. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Odyssey and studied the planet below. The continents were covered in cities that glowed faintly in the darkness, but many areas were completely dark. No lights, no power, no life. The Calathi themselves were unlike anything Sarah had imagined. When the first delegation came aboard the Odyssey, the human crew tried not to stare. The Calathi looked like a combination of insects and crustaceans. They had 6 limbs, hard exoskeletons that shimmered with colors, and compound eyes that reflected light like jewels. They moved with a clicking, skittering grace that was both beautiful and alien. The leader of the delegation was called Zithkor. He was old, his exoskeleton scarred and dull with age. He stood before Sarah and performed a gesture that might have been a bow. "You came," Zithkor said through a translation device that made his voice sound mechanical. "We sent our message without hope. The Concord abandoned us. We thought we would die alone. But you came." Sarah felt the weight of his words. "We're here to help. Tell us everything about the plague." Zithkor led the human team down to the planet's surface. The landing was difficult because the planetary shields kept failing. They had to time their descent carefully, slipping through gaps in the protective barrier. The Calathi capital city was called Zithholm, named after some ancient hero. It had once been magnificent, with towers that reached toward the sky and gardens filled with strange alien plants. But now it was dying. The streets were empty except for medical workers in protective suits. Buildings stood abandoned. The gardens were brown and withered. Jithkor took them to a medical facility. Inside, Sarah saw hundreds of Calathi patients. They lay in beds, their bodies covered in dark patches where the plague was destroying their exoskeletons. Some were too weak to move. Others made sounds of pain that the translation devices could not capture. Dr. Webb immediately began taking samples and setting up equipment. The human medical team worked alongside Calathi doctors, trying to understand the disease. What they found was horrifying. The plague attacked Calathi biology at a genetic level. It was not a virus or bacteria. It was something more advanced, almost like a nanomachine made of organic material. It targeted specific proteins in Calathi cells and broke them down. The process was slow and painful. It could take weeks or months to kill, but it always killed. "This is a weapon," Dr. Webb told Sarah after studying the samples. "Someone engineered this to destroy the Calathi specifically. It wouldn't affect any other species we know about." Zithkor was not surprised when they told him. The old Calathi leader brought Sarah and her senior officers to a secure room deep underground. Inside was a holographic display showing star maps and tactical data. "I must tell you the truth," Zithkor said. "The Concord did not quarantine us because we contacted you. They quarantined us long before that. We were once members of the Concord. We were expelled 3 of your years ago." Commander Rodriguez stepped forward. "Why? What did you do?" "We discovered something the Concord did not want to acknowledge. We found evidence of an ancient enemy, a species that once conquered much of this region of space. We call them the Harvesters. They consume other civilizations, taking their technology and resources. We found artifacts, ruins, warnings from species that were destroyed thousands of years ago." Zithkor manipulated the holographic display. Images appeared showing massive ships, cities in ruins, and symbols that hurt to look at. "We brought this evidence to the Concord Council. We demanded they prepare for the possibility that the Harvesters might return. But the Concord refused to listen. They said we were causing panic. They said the evidence was inconclusive. When we would not be silent, they expelled us and quarantined our system." Sarah felt cold. "And the plague?" "We believe it is a harvester weapon. A vanguard, sent ahead to weaken us before they arrive. We have detected strange signals at the edge of our system. Something is coming." The revelation shook the human team. They had come to save the Calathi from a disease, but now they faced something much worse. An ancient enemy that might already be on its way. Sarah contacted Thelanara immediately. The Concord ambassador appeared on the screen, her crystalline features showing no emotion. "Is it true?" Sarah demanded. "Did you know about the Harvesters? Did you abandon the Calathi because they tried to warn you?" Thelanara was silent for a long moment. "The Concord values stability and peace. The Calathi's claims would have disrupted that peace. We could not allow it, so you let them die instead? You quarantined them and waited for the plague to finish them off?" "We did what was necessary for the greater good of the Concord." Sarah felt rage building inside her. "That's not good. That's cowardice." The ambassador's glow dimmed slightly. "Perhaps, but it is our way. I told you before, Dr. Chen, we value order above all else, even above the truth." The transmission ended. Sarah turned to her crew. They looked shocked and angry. Commander Rodriguez was the first to speak. We need to leave. If something is coming, we're not equipped to fight it. We should take as many Calathi as we can fit on our ships and run. No, Sarah said firmly. We came here to save them. All of them. We're not leaving until we find a cure. Dr. Webb worked day and night with the Calathi medical teams. They tried every treatment they could think of. Nothing worked. The plague was too advanced, too perfectly designed. Every time they found a way to slow it down, the disease adapted. Sarah began to despair. They had come so far, risked so much, and it seemed like they would fail anyway. She spent long hours studying the data, looking for anything they had missed. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. One of the human crew members, a young engineer named Lisa Park, was studying Calathi biology for a different reason. She was trying to understand how their exoskeletons worked so she could help repair damaged buildings. Lisa noticed something strange. The Calathi exoskeleton could regenerate, but only in young Calathi. Adults lost this ability as they aged. The plague specifically targeted the genes responsible for regeneration. Sarah immediately saw the connection. Human stem cell research had been controversial on Earth for decades, but it had led to breakthroughs in regenerative medicine. The Concord considered such research unethical, which was why their doctors had never tried this approach. We can modify human stem cells to work with Calathi biology, Sarah explained to Dr. Webb. If we can restart their regeneration genes, their bodies might be able to fight off the plague. It was a long shot, but it was the best idea they had. The team worked for 3 weeks straight, barely sleeping. They used human stem cells as a template, modified them to match Calathi DNA, and created a treatment. The first test subject was a young Calathi named Tixar. She was dying, her exoskeleton almost completely destroyed by the plague. They had nothing to lose. Dr. Webb administered the treatment himself. For 2 days, nothing happened. Sarah feared they had failed. But on the 3rd day, Tixar's vital signs improved. The dark patches on her exoskeleton began to fade. She was healing. The Calathi Medical Center erupted in joy. It was not a complete cure, but it worked. They could save lives. They could save the species. Production of the treatment began immediately. The humans in Calathi worked together, setting up facilities to manufacture enough doses for the entire population. It would take time, but they finally had hope. Sarah was in the middle of coordinating the distribution effort when Commander Rodriguez burst into the command center. His face was pale. Dr. Chun, we have a problem. A big one. Long-range sensors have detected something entering the system. Something massive. Sarah followed him to the sensor station. On the screen was a ship, if it could be called that. It was the size of a small moon, covered in what looked like organic and mechanical components fused together. It moved through space like a predator, heading straight for Kelath Prime. Zithkor stood beside them, his compound eyes reflecting the horror on the screen. The harvesters have come. The Harvester world ship filled the viewing screens of every vessel in the human fleet. It was ancient and terrible, a machine larger than any city on Earth. Strange lights pulsed across its surface, and parts of it seemed to shift and change as they watched. Sarah had seen pictures of Earth's moon. This thing was bigger. How long until it reaches us? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Commander Rodriguez checked the tactical display. 18 hours at its current speed. Maybe less if it accelerates. 18 hours. That was all the time they had to figure out how to survive against something that had destroyed civilizations thousands of years ago. Sarah immediately contacted Talanara. She expected the Concord ambassador to deny everything again, to hide behind laws and regulations. But when the crystal being appeared on screen, her glow was different. Immer. Almost afraid. You see it, Sarah said. It was not a question. Yes, The Concorde observation ships detected it 30 minutes ago. The Council is in emergency session. Will you help us? Thalanara's silence was answer enough. The Council has voted. All Concorde vessels are ordered to retreat from the system immediately. We cannot risk a confrontation with a harvester ship. I'm sorry, Dr. Chun. Sorry? Sarah felt anger rising inside her. You're abandoning us. Again. Just like you abandoned the Calathi. We are protecting the greater good of the Concorde. 47 species depend on our survival. We cannot throw that away for you and the Calathi. Then you're cowards, Sarah said quietly. All of you. She cut the transmission before Thalanara could respond. Around her, the bridge crew looked shocked. They had just insulted the most powerful alliance in the known galaxy. But Sarah did not care. They were alone now, truly alone, and anger was better than fear. Zithkor called an emergency meeting in the Galathi Council chambers. The room was deep underground, protected by layers of stone and metal. Sarah and her senior officers sat among Calathi leaders, looking at holographic displays showing the approaching threat. We should evacuate, one of the Calathi counselors said. Her name was Sithera, and she was young for a council member. Load as many people as we can onto the human ships and flee. Zithkor shook his head. The human vessels cannot carry more than a few thousand of us. There are 3 billion Calathi still alive on this world. We cannot save them all. Then we save who we can, Sithera insisted. Commander Rodriguez leaned forward. Even if we tried to run, that ship would catch us. Our vessels are not fast enough. We would just die tired. Silence filled the chamber. Sarah looked around at the Calathi faces. Some looked resigned to death. Others looked angry. A few looked determined. There has to be a way to fight, Sarah said. You studied the harvesters. You found their ruins. You must have learned something about how to combat them. Zithkor was quiet for a moment. Then he made a gesture with his limbs that might have been a sigh. We did learn things. We developed weapons and tactics. But when we showed them to the Concorde, we were told such research was illegal. The Concorde bans weapons of war. We were ordered to destroy everything we had created. But you didn't destroy it, Sarah guessed. Did you? The old Calathi's compound eyes seemed to gleam. We hid it. We knew the harvesters might come one day. We kept our weapons in secret facilities, away from Concorde inspectors. Hope flickered in Sarah's chest. Show us. Zithkor led them to a military base on the far side of the planet. The facility was built into a mountain range, camouflaged and shielded. Inside were weapons that made even Commander Rodriguez whistle in appreciation. There were missiles designed to disrupt harvester ship systems. Plasma cannons that could punch through organic armor. Electromagnetic pulse devices built to scramble their sensors. The Calathi had spent years preparing for this fight, even after the Concorde forbade it. This is incredible, Rodriguez said, examining a targeting system. Why didn't you use these to defend yourselves before? Because most of our ships were destroyed when the plague first appeared, Zithkor explained. We have the weapons, but no way to deploy them effectively. Our orbital defense platforms are failing. Our fighter squadrons are grounded. We have the tools, but not the means. Sarah looked at the weapons, then at the human ships in orbit, then back at Zithkor. An idea was forming. A crazy, desperate idea. What if we combined our resources? The Calathi have weapons but no ships. We have ships but weak weapons. Together we might have a chance. The next 12 hours were chaos. Human engineers and Calathi technicians worked together to mount Calathi weapons on human ships. The cultures were different, the technology incompatible in 100 ways, but they made it work. They had to. Sarah coordinated everything from the Odyssey's bridge. She barely slept, surviving on coffee and determination. Dr. Webb's team continued distributing the cure for the plague, racing against time to save as many Calathi as possible before the battle began. With 6 hours left, Zithkor brought Sarah to another secure facility. This one was deeper underground, protected by shields so powerful they interfered with communication. "There is something else," the old Calathi said. "Something we discovered that the Concord wanted destroyed more than anything. We found a harvester weakness." He showed her data files recovered from ancient ruins. The harvesters were powerful, but they had a critical flaw. Their ships were controlled by a central core, a kind of biological computer that managed all systems. If that core could be destroyed, the entire ship would fail. "The problem is reaching the core," Zithkor explained. "It's deep inside the ship, protected by layers of armor and defenses. We would need to get a strike team inside somehow." Sarah studied the data. The core was near what appeared to be the ship's main reactor. If they could overload the reactor while destroying the core, the entire vessel might be destroyed. "Our FTL drive," she said suddenly. "It's experimental and unstable. If we overloaded it deliberately, the explosion would be massive." Zithkor understood immediately. You would need to fly a ship into the harvester vessel and detonate the drive at the core. Yes, it would be a one-way trip. Sarah looked at the old Calathi. But it might work. They presented the plan to Commander Rodriguez and the other officers. The room fell silent as Sarah explained what they would have to do. Someone would need to pilot a ship deep into the harvester vessel, past its defenses, and manually trigger the FTL core to explode. "I'll do it," Sarah said before anyone else could volunteer. "I designed the drive. I know how to make it overload safely." "Well, safely for everyone except me." Rodriguez shook his head. "Absolutely not. You're too valuable. Let me do it." "No, I need you to command the fleet. I need you to make sure the other ships survive." They argued for an hour, but Sarah would not be moved. She had made up her mind. This was why she had come. Not just to cure the plague, but to save the Calathi completely. With 3 hours until the harvester ship arrived, they finalized their battle plan. The other 5 human ships would be equipped with Calathi weapons and would engage the harvester vessel, trying to draw its attention and weaken its defenses. Meanwhile, the Odyssey would make a run at the core. The Calathi scrambled every working fighter they had. It was not many, maybe 200 ships, but they were flown by pilots who had nothing to lose. They would provide cover for the human fleet. Sarah spent her last hour walking through the Odyssey. She visited every section, thanking the crew for their service. Many of them cried. Some hugged her. Others saluted. They all knew what she was about to do. In the medical bay, she found Dr. Webb treating a young Calathi child. The dark patches on the child's exoskeleton were fading. The cure was working. "Make sure they survive, Marcus," Sarah told her friend. "Make sure this wasn't for nothing." Webb's eyes were wet. "We will, I promise." On the bridge, Sarah took the pilot's seat. She would fly the Odyssey herself for this final mission. The crew had already evacuated to the other ships. She was alone. The Harvester world ship entered orbit around Calath Prime. It was even more terrifying up close. Parts of it moved like they were alive. Lights pulsed in patterns that hurt to watch. Smaller craft launched from its base, heading toward the planet. "All ships, this is Dr. Chun," Sarah said over the fleet channel. "Execute the battle plan. For Earth, for the Calathi, for everyone who said this couldn't be done." The human fleet and Calathi fighters charged forward. Plasma bolts and missiles filled space. The harvester ship responded with weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. Ships exploded. People died, but they fought. By all the stars in the sky, they fought. And deep in her heart, Sarah felt something she had not expected. Not fear, Not regret, but pride. Pride in humanity for coming when no one else would. Pride in the Calathi for never giving up. Pride in what they were about to achieve together. The Odyssey accelerated toward the Harvester vessel, and Sarah began charging the FTL core for its final jump. The battle around Keleth Prime was like nothing humanity had ever seen. Explosions lit up the darkness of space like new stars being born and dying in seconds. The Harvester worldship fired weapons that turned matter into energy, that twisted space itself into weapons. But the human fleet and Calathi fighters kept coming. Sarah watched from the Odyssey as the Unity sacrificed itself to protect the squadron of Calathi fighters. The ship rammed a Harvester weapons platform, destroying both in a ball of fire. She saw Calathi pilots fly their damaged fighters directly into the world ship's defenses, clearing paths for others. They were losing. The Harvester ship was too powerful, too massive. For every hit the Allied forces landed, the world ship barely seemed to notice. Its armor regenerated. Its weapons never stopped firing. This was a machine built to end civilizations, and it was doing its job. All ships, fall back, Commander Rodriguez ordered from the Hope. Give Dr. Chun a clear path to the target. The human vessels and Calathi fighters pulled away, still firing to keep the Harvester's attention. Sarah gunned the Odyssey's engines and accelerated straight toward the massive ship. Immediately, defensive fire concentrated on her. Beams of energy that could melt through metal struck the Odyssey's shields. Alarms screamed warnings. Hull breaches appeared on multiple decks. But Sarah kept flying. The Harvester ship had what looked like docking bays along its surface, probably where it had consumed other vessels in the past. Sarah aimed for the largest one, pushing the Odyssey to maximum speed. This is Dr. Sarah Chen of Earth. She broadcast on all frequencies. If anyone is listening, know that humanity answered the call. We came when no one else would. We fought when others ran. And we are not done yet. She crashed the Odyssey through the bay entrance. The ship shook violently as it tore through defenses and barriers. Metal screamed. Systems failed. But the Odyssey was inside. Sarah found herself flying through organic corridors that pulsed with unnatural life. The interior of the Harvester ship was a nightmare of biological and mechanical fusion. Walls that breathed. Machines that seemed alive. This was what the Harvesters did. They consumed species and turned them into parts of their ships. Following Zifkor's maps, Sarah navigated deeper into the vessel. The ship tried to stop her. Defensive systems activated. Walls tried to close. But the Odyssey was too fast, too determined. Then Sarah saw it. The core. It looked like a massive brain made of crystal and metal, suspended in a chamber the size of a cathedral. Energy flowed through it in patterns that made her eyes hurt. This was the heart of the Harvester ship. She aimed the Odyssey directly at it and locked the controls. The FTL drive was charging, building to an overload that would tear a hole in space itself. She had maybe 30 seconds before it exploded. Sarah started to evacuate to the ship's emergency pod. But then the core spoke, not in words, not in any language, but directly into her mind, a presence that was ancient and cold and absolutely certain of its superiority. It showed her visions. The Harvesters had once been a peaceful species, explorers who wanted to unite the galaxy. But they had been betrayed, attacked, nearly exterminated. So they had changed. They had become consumers, taking what they needed to survive, to grow stronger. They believed this was evolution. This was progress. Sarah felt pity for them, for what they had lost. But she also felt rage for what they had become. "You're wrong," she said out loud, though she knew the core could hear her thoughts. Strength isn't about consuming others. It's about helping them. About sacrifice. That's something you forgot. She activated the emergency pod's launch sequence. But before she could enter it, something grabbed the Odyssey. The harvester ship had trapped her vessel with some kind of tractor beam. She was stuck. 20 seconds until Overload. Sarah tried everything to break free. She reversed engines. She fired thrusters. Nothing worked. The ship was holding her, and when the FTL drive exploded, it would take her with it. She thought of Earth, of her parents who had supported her dreams of space exploration, of Dr. Webb and Commander Rodriguez, and all the friends she had made on this impossible journey. She thought of the Calathi children who would live because of the cure they had brought. It was worth it. All of it. 15 seconds. Then something changed. Sarah's sensors detected multiple FTL signatures appearing around the harvester ship. She looked at her screens in disbelief. Concorde ships. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. They poured into the system, their weapons blazing, and at the front was Thelanara's personal vessel. The Concorde fleet opened fire on the harvester ship, hitting it with everything they had. The massive vessel shuddered under the assault. Its shields faltered, and critically, it released its grip on the Odyssey. Sarah Chan. Thelanara's voice came over the communication channel. Get out of there. 10 seconds. Sarah did not hesitate. She dove into the emergency pod and slammed the launch button. The small craft shot out of the Odyssey like a bullet, racing away from the harvester ship's core. 5 seconds. The pod cleared the harvester vessel's outer hull. Sarah could see the battle outside. Human ships, Calathi fighters, and now Concorde vessels all working together against the ancient enemy. 3 seconds. A beam of pure white light grabbed the emergency pod. It was a Concorde transporter. Sarah felt her body dissolve into energy and reform somewhere else. She materialized on the bridge of Thelanara's ship. The crystal ambassador stood before her, glowing brighter than Sarah had ever seen. Welcome aboard, Thelanara said. Behind them, the Odyssey's FTL drive detonated. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. It ripped through the harvester ship's core, and the energy spread through the entire vessel. The world ship convulsed. Its weapons fell silent. Its systems failed. The ancient machine that had destroyed countless civilizations began to tear itself apart. Sarah watched through the viewport as the harvester ship broke into pieces. Explosions cascaded across its surface. Then, with a final brilliant flash, it was gone. The battle was over. Silence filled Thelanara's bridge. Then, slowly, cheering erupted from every ship in the system. Human, Calathi, and even Concorde crews celebrated their impossible victory. Sarah turned to Thelanara. You came back. You defied the Concorde Council. The crystal being's glow pulsed with something that might have been a smile. Not just me. When news of your battle reached the Concorde, something unexpected happened. The people of the member species started demanding action. They watched your fleet fight alone against an enemy we had denied existed. They saw humanity risk everything for strangers. And they were ashamed. Thelanara gestured to the view screen, showing the hundreds of Concorde vessels. The Council tried to maintain neutrality, but the people would not accept it. Ships began arriving here against orders. Crews mutinied. Entire fleets abandoned their posts to come help you. The first sanction, the law we held sacred for thousands of years, was broken not by the Council, but by the people. Sarah felt tears running down her face. So, what happens now? Now, everything changes. The Concorde Council has been dissolved. The member species are forming a new alliance, one that values courage and compassion over blind adherence to law. The Calathi are being welcomed back, and humanity is being offered full membership with a seat on the new governing council. In the weeks that followed, the Calathi homeworld began to heal. The cure for the plague was distributed to everyone. Cities that had been dark began to glow again. Gardens were replanted. Children played in the streets. The human fleet, or what was left of it, stayed in orbit. They had lost the Unity and the Odyssey, and the other ships were heavily damaged. But they had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Commander Rodriguez visited Sarah in her temporary quarters on Caliph Prime. She was recovering from her injuries. Nothing serious, but enough to keep her in bed for a few days. Dr. Webb wants to stay, Rodriguez told her. He's been working with the Calathi medical teams, and they've made breakthroughs that could help both our species. A lot of the crew wants to stay too, to help rebuild. Sarah nodded. What about you? I'm going home. Earth needs to know what happened here. They need to know what we accomplished. He paused. And they need to know what you did. Sarah shook her head. What we did. All of us. Humanity, the Calathi, even the Concord in the end. We did this together. Zifkor visited her the day before the remaining human ships departed for Earth. The old Calathi leader looked healthier now. The cure had reversed the plague's damage. He would live. My people have a saying, Zifkor told her. Those who answer a cry in the darkness bring light to the whole galaxy. You brought light, Sarah-chan. You and your species. The Calathi will never forget. Sarah took his hand, his exoskeleton smooth and cool against her skin. We'll never forget either. You gave us something precious. You showed us that we're not alone, that there are others out there worth fighting for. On the day of departure, thousands of Calathi gathered to watch the human ships leave. They filled the landing fields and the rooftops, their exoskeletons glittering in the sunlight. As the ships rose into the sky, they sang. Sarah did not understand the words, but she felt the emotion behind them. Gratitude. Hope. Friendship. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Hope, now serving as the fleet's flagship. Earth was 6 months away, but this time the journey would be different. The Concord had given them better.